The legend of the 1999 Mr. Olympia lineup is well known to bodybuilding fans. I mean, the top 6 looked like this: Ronnie Coleman, Flex Wheeler, Chris Cormier, Kevin Levrone, Sean Ray, and Nasser El Sonbati. That's literally the best bodybuilders of the 90s, considered the best decade in bodybuilding, all of them in their prime. Only Dorian Yates is missing from this equation as he retired in 1997. However, hardcore bodybuilding fans are aware that 10 years later at the 2009 Mr. Olympia, we had a similar scenario where arguably the best bodybuilders of the second part of the 2000s and the first part of the 2010s finished in the top 6, namely Jay Cutler, Branch Warren, Dexter Jackson, Kai Green, Phil Heath, and Victor Martinez. I'm sure there are a lot of 90s nostalgics watching this video, but this 2009 top 6 is in no way, shape or form weaker, at least on paper. In my last video, I compared the lineups from 2024 against 2014 and you guys loved the concept, so I thought I should give you something even better in this video. We're going to compare the top 6 of the 2 greatest Mr. Olympia lineups ever against each other to see which year reigns supreme. The rules are simple. We're going to compare the winners against each other, the runner-ups against each other, until we compare all of them all the way through the 6th place finishers against each other. We're going to start with the 6th place finishers, Nasser El Sonbati versus Victor Martinez. When it comes to these two, these versions are not their peak physiques, which for both were probably 2 years prior, namely 1997 and 2007, coincidentally or not, 2 of the most controversial Olympias ever, but I digress. Back to the comparison, just like in our previous video, we're going to take a look at a front pose, a side pose, and a back pose, as we cannot turn this video into a literal 6 matchups comparing all mandatories. From the front, I'm using the front double biceps, which is more than telling about their overall physiques, completeness, aesthetics, and conditioning. They both look great here, with developed arms and aesthetic yet muscular physiques, but Victor's upper body lower body imbalance loses ground from the front. From the side, I'm looking for overall roundness and muscularity in the side chest. Victor looks a bit more polished, but Nasser has better fullness and looks more dominant. From the back, in the back double biceps, we're able to analyze most of the body parts and also the most telling aspect about conditioning, the glutes and hamstrings hardness and dryness. When it comes to the actual back, Victor wins for sure. And for the lower body, we may tend to believe Nasser is off by his glutes. But if we pay attention, he's not actually flexing the glutes because his hamstrings look pretty tight. However, he loses from the back here. Overall, I believe Nasser would have the advantage, him probably giving up convincingly only the back poses, so the first point goes to 1999 in this matchup. In 5th place, we have a legendary matchup between 2 of the most gifted bodybuilders of all time, Sean Ray and Phil Heath. This wasn't Phil at his best, as he allegedly suffered from food poisoning during prejudging, but this was in no way, shape or form a bad version. On the other hand, we have Sean Ray, who in 1999 was arguably in his best shape ever. Yeah, he finished higher at the Olympia in the past, even runner-up a couple of times, but for many, including myself, this was his absolute best. From the front, Phil is definitely more muscular, but Sean has the aesthetics on his side. Now, whether you want to admit it or not, guys in the 90s weren't as full and big as they were by 2009, even though conditioning-wise they are considered better. Also, Sean was a smaller bodybuilder, which made it hard for him to compete with bigger guys. Compared to Sean, Phil is pretty big as well, and we can notice this from the side. Although this wasn't one of Phil's biggest and fullest versions, he still massively outclasses Sean when it comes to overall muscularity. Phil also looks harder from the side. There's no doubt Phil would crush Sean in the side poses. From the back, Sean was very complete, but I still think he's too small to beat this version of Phil, even though it's not one of his best. Sean would give up too much size on stage side by side. He's not out-conditioning Phil, and aesthetics alone won't help him too much. In my opinion, Phil Heath wins this one, making the score 1-1. In 4th place, we have another legendary matchup, Kevin Levrone versus Kai Green, 2 of the best ever to not win the Mr. Olympia. Kevin is known for never actually being at his potential best. There was always this thing about him not fulfilling it, at least on the Olympia stage. but his incredible genetics have always placed him in the conversation. In the front poses against Kai, I believe he would lose. His legs almost never reached the same level as his upper body, and his arms in this angle were not very defined, two departments Kai was very strong in. However, from the side, the situation changes. Kevin's roundness and thickness made him one of the best ever, and despite losing the lower body to Kai's incredible side leg, overall, Kevin dominates from the side. From the back, Kai was one of the best ever, especially in the back double biceps. Kevin simply doesn't have the back to go against Kai, even though the back lat spread would be another story between them. However, Kai is more well-rounded overall. Now, Kevin definitely has the better overall proportions and stature, and his physique looks more beautiful, but Kai's mass and conditioning, his freaky body parts like the biceps, back and legs, would give him a huge advantage over him. At least as far as these two versions go, I believe the Predator would have the upper hand, so 2009 takes the lead, making the score 2-1. In third place, we have an even more difficult analysis, Chris Cormier and Dexter Jackson. For these two, these versions were probably their actual best versions in their entire careers, so this comparison would definitely deserve an entire video dedicated to it. Chris's advantages would be that he was a taller bodybuilder, but Dexter compensates with superior fullness and conditioning. From the side, it's pretty obvious for me that Dexter is superior due to his more compact and fuller muscle bellies. Dexter also wins the side leg decisively. From the back, these two have some of the most underrated backs in bodybuilding. Not many people talk about these two when discussing the best backs, but both of them had complete backs, with great insertions, definition and balance. The advantage that the 2009 bodybuilders seem to have is with the glute ham development and definition. It's true that they didn't put so much emphasis on this in the 90s, and we cannot talk about a lack of conditioning either, but on stage, Chris would be exposed by the blade looking like that. I think this one could go either way, but in my opinion, Dexter Jackson would win this one. So 2009 takes a considerable 2-point lead with a 3-1. In second place, we have the most contrasting matchup we could have. On one side, we have Flex Wheeler, the one called the Sultan of Symmetry, and on the other side, we have a monster in Branch Warren, criticized for his lack of aesthetics, but undeniable when it comes to muscle and definition. From the front, Flex looks like a statue, and with his acceptable conditioning, even though not even close to Branch's level, I believe Flex would have the overall advantage. From the side, even though Branch doesn't look what you would call appealing, he's simply undeniable against Flex. Genetics can't win you everything, sometimes hard work beats talent, and that's the case here, at least in the side poses. Branch's graininess is undeniable. From the back, it's even harder to decide. Flex is lucky Branch doesn't have a well-developed back, because based on the overall details and dryness, Branch would literally kill Flex on stage, especially lower body. Branch Warren is so underrated in this department, he may actually have the best and most complete lower body of all time. He didn't miss anything. Flex smoothness through the glutes and hams is not worthy even for the 90s when the emphasis on these areas wasn't as important, but it's true that Flex pictures don't do him justice here. 1999 was actually one of his better years, and overall, being a taller, more aesthetic, winning the front poses, I believe he would do well in the side triceps, abs and thighs, and most muscular against Branch. I think it's safe to say that the Sultan of Symmetry would probably win, but it's indeed very debatable. Who do you have winning this one? For me, the score is 3-2 at this moment for 2009. As for the winners, Ronnie Coleman vs Jay Cutler is a classic. Since these two are arguably their best ever physiques, everybody knows that the best Ronnie would beat the best Jay Cutler. Even Jay would agree to that. However, many people fail to realize that these early Olympia winning physiques from Ronnie in the 90s weren't actually that big. Ronnie Coleman has a cult following among the fans, and this may upset many, but him in 1998 and 1999 was actually under 250 pounds, and 09 Jay was 255 shredded here. Jay was way shorter, so putting these two physiques on the same stage could make Jay look like he would outmuscle Ronnie Coleman. The 90s was the best decade, but Dexter Jackson put it the best. They actually lacked fullness compared to the following decades. And we all see what happens when a bodybuilder doesn't bring fullness on stage today. He immediately gets lower placings. Back to the comparison, of course, Ronnie still wins, don't worry about that. My point is that this would actually be a closer matchup than most believe, that's all. However, Ronnie is more aesthetic, wins the back poses hands down, and has that wow factor in all poses that truly made him the GOAT. Now the final score is 3-3 for the top 6 at these Olympias, which doesn't help too much in objectively deciding which was the better lineup. I think there are strong arguments for 2009 as well if we're talking strictly about their look on stage. As per bodybuilding criteria, if we were to look at the rest of the top 10 from 7th to 10th, this is where I believe 1999 reigns supreme without question. In 1999 we had Paul Dillett in 7th, Lee Priest in 8th, Dexter Jackson in 9th, a debuting Dexter together with Jay Cutler, who also debuted at this show but finished only 14th, and then you had Milos Sarcev in 10th. In 2009 the names are not as renowned. We had Ronnie Rockel in 7th, Tony Freeman in 8th, Hidetada Yamagishi in 9th, and Mo El Moussaoui in 10th. We didn't compare these physiques against each other, but at least in terms of greatness in the sport, 1999 looks to dominate for sure. But as far as the actual top 6 goes, I'm sure many of you were surprised to see how strong 2009 actually was. Let me know in the comment section which one is the better top 6 in your opinion. Don't forget to like the video for the algorithm, subscribe for more videos like this. See you in the next one.